Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sacred Travel Podcast. Today, I have Klara with me, and we are going to be speaking about the wisdom of the untouched woods, how nature dreams our dream with us. Klara is a modern mystic, writer, and owner of two businesses. Her mystical craft spans brand creation, soul code channeling, and mystic living mentorship, supported by her background in graphic design, transformational coaching, and energy work. Furthermore, she runs a small holiday house agency for Sweden, a family business that's successful since 1997, giving Swedish cottage owners the chance to rent out their summer abodes to nature lovers, Scandi fans, and those who seek to connect with the magic of the North. Welcome, Klara. Welcome. I am super excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and excited to dive into the magic of Sweden, really. And yeah, and all you've said. It's exciting. I can't wait.
So tell our audience a little bit how you came to have that passion and also how you discovered that connection to that land.
Yeah, so well, I guess it's it's mainly due to my parents for sure, because they've been traveling through Scandinavia ever since they were students. My dad's already been traveling through Finland and then also Scandinavia with his parents when he was small. So it's kind of in the family. And yeah, my parents started the holiday house agency. The first year that the business ran was 1997, but they started to prep for it in 1996. So I was 2 at the time. And that was when it all started. So that was the time when we started to go to Sweden every single year, every single summer. I spent my childhoods there. And it meant driving around Sweden at the time every summer for like 6 weeks and just looking at all the different houses and taking photos, because obviously it was pre-internet day. So my parents would drive around, my dad would take all the pictures and would have like bags and bags of film in the back of the car, and we would go home again and develop the films, and then we would look at the pictures. And it's been it's been just such an integral part of my life. And my business grew from the living room as well. So my parents were at home and the business was always there with me and it kind of grew up with me. So it's in a way a really close relationship, not just to the country, but also to the being, like working with the country as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it always felt like Sweden was my second home, really. And it's I traveled to Sweden alone for the first time when I was 17, I think. And it was also wonderful to just be there and, in my own energy and get to know the country from a different perspective again, not the work perspective, but just the exploring and holiday perspective. And it's just always been that place where I felt at peace and really like this deep, deep joy. It always happened. I still remember that feeling whenever we set foot on the ferry to Sweden. It was like this feeling of like, oh my God, we're gonna be there any moment. And then it's like the small things that already changed something inside of me. I remember like being a kid and looking out the window and then seeing, when the road signs shift and they look different
Yeah.
from home. And it's like when I see the Swedish ones, it's like, oh, I'm home in this
Wow.
really beautiful way. So yeah, and that's still the same to this day. It's like there is something in the air, the way the air tastes, the way the air looks, the light. It's like now when I arrive, and now normally, because I now live in southern Germany, at the time we lived in the north, so we could just drive over relatively easily. And now it's just too far. So I mostly go there by plane. And now it's like that moment when I step out of the plane, it's like already the light,
Mm,
the air, it's like an instant change. And it's like as if something in my system just goes, ah, I have arrived.
mm. Wow. It sounds like your soul is really home and has arrived, to that, like the resonance of the land. And so tell us a little bit about what do you feel is the medicine of this landscape?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like it has so many layers of medicine. And I think the biggest aspect for me is the medicine of silence. And
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
feel like it already arises whenever when you fly into Stockholm, it's the landing already. It's like you will just see, first you'll see the city and you see the sea and you see all the archipelago, and it's like that's just magic already. But then you see the woods and just the vast stretches of woods. And the woodlands is just like, it's almost like as if it's emanating this peaceful silence that is just saying, I'm here. And that's it. It's just, I'm here. And then when I arrive there, it's like that silence exists everywhere in some kind of magical way for me. Even in the noisy places, there was still this undercurrent of silence. And I don't know, I feel like some people might call it crazy because, at the airport, how would you say an airport can be silent? It isn't silent on the level of
Mm.
noise, right? But even at that airport, I feel like there is this undercurrent of silence is still there. And that's something that I feel throughout the country. There is a sense of calm that I don't really feel here so much. And it arises in all the different places. It's the most obvious, of course, when you're in the woods. And like one of my favorite spots, I mean, there are many spots that I really love, but one of the spots I've returned to over the past couple of years, like sitting on a jetty by the lake in Dalarna, and there's just no human sound available to your ears. It's just the gentle water movement. It's the movement of the trees, and it's just complete silence. And yet there are so many sounds, but it is still, it's a different experience. And I even get that on the roads in Sweden, which is also like a strange thing to say maybe, but even when you drive in Sweden, it's like the driving is also, there has this aspect of silence, because there is less busyness, there is less noise. Part of it, of course, is that it's just a lot less cars on the road, so it's very peaceful, and you're not allowed to drive very fast at all, so it's also much more peaceful.
Mm.
But yeah, there is this undercurrent of peace, really, and silence that I seem to feel wherever I go in the country, even in the
That's
noisy places.
beautiful. And as you say, it feels like there is a lot just like nature sounds, and it's not these, noises and distractions that we are, or most of us are exposed to on a daily basis. And so what I feel when you speak about it is that we actually are so much invited and have a chance to listen to what our soul, our heart is speaking to us, because that is what comes forward in that silence, right?
Absolutely, and it feels like that's one of the big aspects of the medicine, I think, is really that it opens up space to hear yourself and to hear soul and to hear life.
So, would you want to share some of your experiences or transformational moments that you had while being on the land, or maybe even before and after? Because sometimes it doesn't come when we are there, right? Sometimes it also comes when before or after a trip. Hey all, if you enjoy the episodes and enjoy the work that I'm putting out there, you would do me the biggest favor if you hit the subscribe button below, leave me a review, leave me a comment, and just engage in my content so I can continue to have these beautiful conversations with amazing humans, and we can dive together every week into this beautiful planet that we call home and the sacred site medicine that it has to offer. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. There's I think there are several moments that lend themselves to sharing really well. And I think it's one of them was last year. I was actually in 2022, I went to a yoga retreat for the first time in the woods of Dalarna. So it was the first time that I also, over the past 7 years since I've taken over the business from my parents, was there for a complete holiday experience rather than work experience. So which was interesting. And it was like it was just such a magical experience to be in the woods, to be with these people. And completely changed. It was the most important experience of that year of 2022 was these 3 days in the woods. And then last year came along and I knew the retreat was going to happen again, but I was like, I'm not sure what's going on in my life. It's like, and I just wasn't able to commit to going anywhere or planning anything at the time. So September was rolling around and I knew the retreat was going to happen. And it was like this pull, the closer it came, the pull was getting stronger and stronger. And a few days before the retreat, I saw that the teacher posted on Instagram, I think, and said, "Oh, there is still a place left, you know." And I emailed her and said, like, "Well, is it still there?" And she said, "Yeah, it's still there. And even if it wasn't there, we would make space for you if you could come." And so I booked flights like 3 days before the retreat, which for me, it's like I'm normally like one of these people who loves to plan and has, it's like I need to
Hmm.
know it. And so it was completely against my own nature in a way, or against what for me is normal. So and I just went for it. I booked it, and 3 days later I was on the plane and I went over, and everything magically fell into place. Like people from the previous year man could take me from the airport to the retreat, and it was just like
Mm.
as if life has been waiting and said like, yeah, we're gonna make this happen for you. We're just gonna make everything just right. And it was so magical to be back there. It was like it was amazing. And then you always have this day, the Saturday after arriving. We have a lot of time, like on all the days, you have a lot of time, but there is like this massive stretch of time between the brunch and the fika, so the coffee and cake in the Swedish way. And so you have like 5, 6 hours of doing nothing. And it's such a profound thing to actually genuinely do nothing, to not have Wi-Fi, to not
Yeah.
have noise, to not have anything. And I really wanted to commit to embracing that. So what I just went onto it's like a small island-ish there in the lake. And you can go there and it's like, and nobody else was there. It was just me. And I was like sitting on that.
Mm.
I was just watching the lake and the horizon. And then what really came like flowing over me was like this absolute awe for the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of
Mm.
nature, for the beauty of life. And also this deep realization that we as humans are part of all of that. And it felt to me like this, it felt to me like the beauty of nature yearns to be witnessed like that. It yearns to be
Mm.
seen, and it yearns to be, yeah, to be acknowledged. And it felt like as if the land was saying that it's time to let go of this shame that we as humans often hold. I feel like, and I've held so much, this shame for feeling like, we as humans destroy the earth. It's our fault that
Mm.
everything is the
Mhm.
way it is. It's like, that it would be thoughts like, the earth would be better off if humans didn't exist, etc., etc. All of that is like so much guilt and shame. And it felt like as if the land was just opening up my heart, really, and saying like, no, this is not how it has to be. This is not how it really is. It's like, and I felt like I could see that the advancements of human technology, for example, can actually really exist in co-creation with the beauty of nature. And not just that, not just coexist, but really enhance and be part of the beauty of the earth. And it really felt like as if this land was like saying like, it is really like this potential, this possibility of
Mm.
being in communion with the land and co-creating even more beauty together with the land as
Yeah.
as a human. And I felt that so deeply in that moment that it was like it was it was almost overwhelming, but it
Yeah.
was so beautiful.
Yeah. Wow, I feel that I have a great resonance for that. And I've also had a couple of experiences where, I describe them in a way that it's really the realization of we as humans are part of this like immense great web of life. We are part of nature. We are made of from by nature. And I love how you speak to the release and also the embrace of this let's do it together, because I strongly, strongly feel that this is the way forward. And so I really also love the title you chose about, how nature dreams our dream with us. And I want to ask you, what do you feel about the importance of dreaming?
I think it's hard to put into words how important it really is, because it feels to me like the dream is always the beginning of change, really, and the beginning of positive change. And it feels like so many of us have been taught at some point in our lives that it's naive to dream, or not safe to dream, or just a waste of energy or a waste of time to dream really big and crazy and wild dreams of a better future. And to me, it feels like every time we allow ourselves to dream those dreams, and even to, to co-dream these dreams with nature, it feels like it's a ripple effect that goes out into the world on an energetic level. It's like, it feels like the frequency of that dream exists somewhere in the world. It's I think you can feel it, and I think you can feel in people when they dare to dream. And when you feel the energy behind their dream, then it's like, even those who might not like logically resonate with it, or might from a logical perspective, rational perspective, go like, that dream makes sense and I want to work for it and I want to be part of it, they will still feel it as an essence of potential, I think, as something
Mm,
that is triggering something within, softening something within.
mm,
And I think nature is really yearning to co-dream with us, to be part of that dream. And it's like, it feels like when we open ourselves up to that and when we let that in, it's like the magic just explodes. And maybe not necessarily in a, in a physical sense, that there is like huge change all of a sudden in our lives and everything is different and it's completely, visible in the 3D right away. But it's somewhere inside, it really changes something. And I had that experience, and as well on that same day, I happened to stay together with a woman who has now become a dear friend. And that night we decided to go stargazing together. And
oh, wow. Mm,
it was a new moon, so there was no moon, then no
oh,
light pollution, because we were in the middle of nowhere. And we went to the lake and we went onto the jetty. There was one jetty which was really long, so you could basically lie there in the middle of the lake. We had to wrap ourselves up because of the mosquitoes, but mosquitoes aside, it was, the stars were reflecting in the light at the lake. It was completely still. There was no air moving. And I've never in my life seen so many stars. And
mm.
it was like, I don't know, I felt like I was sitting in a fairy tale. It was surreal. The lake, the stars reflecting in the lake. We saw so many shooting stars that night. And
Oh,
we were lying there and we were talking about, it felt like the extension of the afternoon. The afternoon was like, felt like was dreaming with the earth and dreaming with nature and with the landscape and what it is here on the ground. And then in the evening, it was the dreaming that extended into the cosmos.
mm.
And it was
Oh,
just,
it almost makes me cry. It's so, I think everybody, has that longing to experience such a thing. So it's so beautiful that you actually also allowed yourself to do it while being there, because I'm assuming it can also be afraid, or like scary sometimes to be just surrounded by that vastness.
it was so fascinating. It was really humbling and at the same time really expanding. And we were discussing then, we were lying there and talking about, yeah, so like the meaning of life, and where we all come from, and
Mm.
cosmic heritage, and what else is out there. And it's just like so much kind of was just flowing. And then we walked back and then there were fireflies around us. And my Swedish friend said, this is insane. She's never seen fireflies in her life before. This was the first time she'd seen fireflies, and we were just looking around and
Magic.
they were just everywhere. They were like we knew like there were the lingonberry and blueberry bushes on the side, and they were in there. They were sitting there, and it was just magical. It's like above the stars, and then in the forest, the fireflies. It was like,
Yeah.
and it was one of those moments, I think, and it feels like that was one of the reasons why I was pulled to go there. Like, and it felt like it's gonna be like such a short time. I was there for 3 days, but it was gonna be this experience again of being there for 3 days and just charging up for like an entire year or
Hmm.
much longer. It feels like I'm still half a year later feeding off that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
can feel
wild.
that
It's
completely.
yeah, I think if the soul is fueled like that, it's like it feels to me like it's one of the ways of really becoming embodied, especially during difficult times. I think it's like when it sometimes feels like I'm not even, not even, oh, it's just like this being here as a human, it's all difficult and that and all of that. And then an experience like that comes along and it's like, I absolutely totally want to be here on this planet right now.
Hmm.
This is like the most incredible, beautiful gift there
Yeah.
is. And it feels like that was, again, one of those moments that rooted that knowing.
Hmm. What a choice to be here at this time. Yeah, to be alive. I still want to go a little bit deeper into the dreaming because you said something like if we yeah just open up ourselves to it. How how did you do that and how would you encourage or recommend listeners to co-dream with nature?
That's an interesting question. I feel like the opening up came from, and still when I do it now, it feels like it comes from becoming really aware of the places in my body where the resistance comes up. And I feel it really, I feel it in my heart
Mm,
space. It's like when it's almost like it doesn't, it's quite interesting. It feels like the dreaming process itself and also this co-dreaming with nature, it almost didn't feel like something that I actively did. It was more like the dream is sort of coming in.
yeah,
And the dream is like knocking on the door of your heart and
yeah.
kind of like, hey, can I flow through you in some way, shape, or form? And it felt like the active part of it was really feeling that, whereas like feeling like a contraction in my heart space and going like, oh, this feels quite scary actually. This is like, and whatever, all the thoughts that come up with it, like, who am I to dream this big? And it's like, am I just making all of this up? I mean, this is all,
Mm, yeah.
and just being with that and going like, okay, that's fine. That kind of exists. These voices are a thing. They are part of this experience. They are part of my past. They are part of, it's just, but it is what it is. It's just voices. It's just, it's nothing to stop me from letting the dream in. And then opening up despite the existence of these voices and fears, and just being open and curious for this like feeling of, let's see what happens when I let this in. Let's see what happens. Let's see how that actually feels when I let this dream in. And let's see what the dream has to say, what words come. And I wrote it down in my journal at the time. I wrote really fast. I can't read half the things that I wrote. And afterwards I was like, no, I wish I could transcribe it, but um
Get yourself a recorder, a recording
exactly.
device.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And it really feels to me about like not letting the internal discouragement that comes through thoughts or restricted feelings, don't let that keep the dream out, but acknowledging that that exists and that it is valid as well, that it's fine that that exists, that it's natural that these fears come up and these restrictive feelings come up simply from how we lived, how we grew up, from our past, from the collective stories that we exist within. So it's only natural that there is some resistance, but not letting that stop anything. And that's
Mm,
something, one of those things that, I don't know, I feel like many of you listeners can probably relate to that, when we have family members, for example, who will shut down a dream the instant it's kind of brought to the table in some way, shape, or form, as something that's just unrealistic. And I feel like we often have these inner critics within ourselves as well, right? That as soon as something that doesn't feel achievable right here and now goes, no, that's nonsense. and
completely.
and to let that inner critic, to be soft with it inner critic, I guess, and just being with them as like, okay, I hear you, and still I'm going to open up to this and see where it takes me, because we never know.
Mm. It's very powerful. And, I can really feel how the land of Sweden and how these, the woods and the waters and how you describe the stillness, how this land is supporting our inner process of allowing that dream to come up, while at the same time also the voices will come up. And I loved how you said it's just voices, like it's just voices. Nothing more, nothing less. And yeah, so mm, let's just see. I just also want to presence. I really love how this conversation is different from what I have experienced, because I can feel the underlying silence. And even when there is a pause, like none of us has the feeling like we have to jump in and fill the gap. It's more like letting unfold what's there and really listening in the quiet what wants to come forward. So that's also beautiful, because I can feel the land working through us already. Um, so would you say that there is also a certain courage needed for people to go to Sweden and engage with the medicine of the land?
Absolutely, yes. And I think I've that also reminds me of the retreat last year, which was quite an interesting experience for me, because I also had this assumption that the Swedes will all, be open to these experiences anyway, because it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
land and stuff. And then we had a couple of ladies from Stockholm who were there as well, and they said they were afraid. They were not sure they could handle it. They were not sure they actually wanted to go into the forest, and they were
Mm,
wary of the forest and wary of the wilderness and wary of the silence, because they lived very, very busy city lives, and it's what they loved and what they liked, but they felt like there was something missing. And that's how they ended up coming into the woods. And it made me realize how much courage is needed to be willing to participate in the transformation, and to be willing to participate in the dreaming of the land. Because it does feel to me like you can go to Sweden and not participate. It's like, I think that's also what many people do. It's totally, there's so much to do. There are lots of, there are so many activities one can do. There is so much going on. You can go hiking, and you can do all of this, like swimming and whatnot. And then there are lots of towns, there are lots of museums, there's lots of art, there are the big cities. It's like, it's not that it is, a land that is only the woods and the silence and the lake. But I think there is something really deep and beautiful coming through when we have the courage to let that silence come in.
mm,
But I do believe that it needs courage, and I think it needs also this active decision in a way to take part, and to let the land in, and to give the land permission to co-dream with,
mm,
because it feels to me like the land is not going to force that on anyone, but it's absolutely magical when you go there with that intention and with the invitation to the land as well, of really going there and saying, here I am, and from the first second I want to take you in, I want to learn, I want to be with you, I want to dream with you, show me the way, like show me, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you experience any difficulty, let's say difficulties or harder moments in your transformational journey while you were there?
Absolutely. It was definitely not just not just romantic, beautiful moments by the lake. Actually, it's on both the journeys over in the past 2 years where I went there alone. It was both times there were moments where I was felt like I wanted to go and leave and go back home. And this is too much. This is too intense. This is
Yeah.
too, I just, and it happened both times, I think, in that particular retreat. It happened both times on the Saturday morning, I think, because I saw that in my journals. Because both times I was journaling in the morning. It was also interesting that retreat is also partially silent retreat. So there's no speaking between dinner and after lunch,
Mm,
basically. So the mornings are still silent, so you maybe see someone else somewhere, but it's still, there's a lot of solitude as well. And I think in one of those moments in the morning where I just felt the other side of the silence, because I feel like there is the silence, that the aspect of silence that makes me feel deeply connected with the world, and also the aspect of solitude that makes me feel deeply connected with life. But it's almost like if that coin flips, and the shadow side of that is feeling really lonely and feeling really
mm, yeah.
secluded and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like, and I had these moments there as well where I felt like, oh God, I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's like just a few people here. And my husband is so far away, and my cats are so far away, and I'm like a 2 hour flight away from home, and I'm here all alone, and oh God, and all of that. And then living
Hmm.
through that and being with that as well, and going like, oh, okay, that is also a part of the experience. And the same actually happens for me as well when I'm in one of the houses that I rent out. Some of them are literally in the middle of nowhere. Some of them are in absolute no man's land. And when you have a house where it's just you and it's just silence and there are no neighbors and there is no town nearby, and you've just driven I don't know how many kilometers through the forest to get there, it can feel really scary. And I was there with
Hmm.
a friend, and she didn't like it. We were traveling around last year as well for 2 weeks and looking at different houses, and she actually felt like, I wouldn't want to go on holiday here. It's like, it feel like I can't do it. It just feels, she felt afraid. She felt like she needed to lock the doors and lock the windows and just, and it was like almost, yeah, keeping nature out and staying in here and staying safe until we can go back to civilization. So that's
Yeah.
totally something that also comes up. And that's why I also have people who really want to go to Sweden, but they want to go to a place where there are neighbors around and there is
Yeah.
not this feeling of complete secludedness. So you get both. And then you get lots of people who specifically seek that out, who really want to be alone, who really want to be in the middle of nowhere. And that's the experience they seek. The beauty of it is, I feel like you can have both, and you can still have these magical experiences even when you're not completely in the middle of nowhere, because it feels like it does take more courage and a certain desire as well to have that experience. But I feel like the connection to the dream and the connection to the nature is still possible. Like even in Stockholm it's possible. Even there are these spots that are just magical, and where, as I said earlier, it's like, I think this underlying silence, if you're open to it, exists even at Arlanda Airport.
Yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
of those crazy things where it's like, I don't know, I feel it even on the noisy plane after landing, the hustling and bustling. It's just, then it is there as an underlying frequency.
I love it. So, what are your tips for travel enthusiasts wanting to go to Sweden now? Let us have some of your recommendations.
Oh, there's so I always find that a really tricky question because the whole country has so much to offer. It's there is there is so much to explore. There are so many places to go, and the nature is just it's just gorgeous wherever you go. And it's I feel like it is also all the different aspects of experiences that are possible. So for me, I personally, I just love the woods. That's my most important part for me is to be in the woods, to be. I love to be in the country. I love to be near the lakes. I love to drive around and explore different places. I love to go to the nature reserves. There are lots of beautiful nature reserves, and especially for those who don't want to go too far north, there are even some nature reserves further to the south that are really wild as well, where you can get that wildness feeling as well. And then there are the archipelagos, of course, both in the west and in the east. So they are also just really special places to with different energies to work with as well. It's like because working with the rocks there is a
Mm,
different experience from being with the lakes and the forests.
yeah.
So it's a different kind of silence. It's a different kind of dreaming. So I feel like it's really valuable to explore the country online as well. And visitsweden.com is actually great, I think, for that because the tourism board in Sweden, they are really great at just making beautifully designed websites and experiences online where you can just feel into the different areas of Sweden. And that's also, for example, one of the experiences that can be super interesting is the archipelago islands near Stockholm. So south, right around Stockholm, south and north of Stockholm, because there you have the opportunities, for example, to stay in a house on an island where there are no cars and no roads. And that's also one of those things that I personally
Yeah.
find really fascinating
Wow.
because it's a completely different experience when you have to take a boat to get to where you
Definitely.
stay, and to be in a place where cars are just non-existent and just be a week
Yeah.
somewhere where, yeah, there just are no roads and there are no shops and all of these things is where you of course have to do a bit of pre-planning and think about getting your food there. And nowadays you can even order food to the archipelago, so there's even like food delivery boats that go out to most islands and just bring like basically bring groceries to the shore. But yeah, there's so much to explore, there's so much to see. And one of the things I personally really also feel that the driving experience, reading, driving through the country also is a way of connecting with it in an interesting way, because normally it feels like normally you want to arrive somewhere, right? And you want to get there and you want to be there. But in Sweden, it's the only place that I know where I feel like I actually enjoy driving and I actually enjoy being on the way, and where it feels like
Mm.
the journey to a place, because obviously you probably end up doing quite a bit of driving just because of the size of the country. So, especially for those who drive from Germany, for example, who drive up, will drive quite a bit. But I've always felt like that drive is part of the arriving process,
Mm,
and it
yeah.
is part of the experience as well. It's just seeing these landscapes pass by. It's for me, it is a bit like reading a poem in some way.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So yeah, if you have any specific questions around tips, then I'll be happy to answer them as well. It feels like this was like now super broad, like the broadest ever. But
You know what we'll do? We'll just direct people to your contact details that we put in the show notes, and of course, we also put your travel home agency. So if anybody feels curious to rent out a home in the middle of nowhere or with neighbors, as you just said, so everybody who has questions in more detail can reach out to you.
that sounds good. Yes.
Is there any final piece that wants to come through, or any even land transmission?
Let's see. There's something there. I feel like what comes up is really for us to acknowledge the beauty in seeing nature and truly witnessing the land. It feels to me like the land is really, it might sound strange, but it feels to me like the land is really receiving something
Mm-hmm.
from us being there and loving it and
Mm.
acknowledging it and seeing it. It feels to me like the land desires to be witnessed. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be witnessed. It's one of those beautiful things where it feels like it doesn't need that. It doesn't need us to be there. But it actually still, yeah, as if it is pleasurable for the land to be witnessed in that way. And I think there is something special in Sweden as well about that witnessing of the land, because of the relationship that people have with the land and the country has with the land, and aspects like allemansrätten, which is the permission to be on the land wherever you want. So you can go pretty much wherever you want. You can camp in the forest. You are allowed to do these things as long as you take very good care of the land and honor it. And, like obviously the usual things, like don't leave any rubbish lying around, these kinds of things. But it's really
Yeah. Yeah.
about, it's like there is this general permission of the land doesn't belong to anyone, and yet it belongs to everyone. And it is there to be experienced and to be loved and to be interacted with in this really honoring, loving way of reciprocity in a way. And
Mm.
it feels like you can really feel the gifts of the land. You can experience the gifts of the land in such a beautiful way. Even like, for example, in September when you go and harvest the blueberries and the lingonberries. And it's like, it felt to me like always this going into land, and there's so much abundance there, and the land gifts you these berries. And from that gift, you will go in and only take as much as you need and not over harvest in the forest, but really take, yeah. And it feels to me like I take what I need for my breakfast bowl, and then I'm going to go back and really be with the berries and ingest the forest in that beautiful way. And it's like, and it feels to me like there is joy coming from the land in us participating in that way. And it feels to me like Sweden is one of those places where that invitation feels very strong. And it's, yeah, it's beautiful. I think it's a different energy there from here, for example, when it comes to the relationship between the people and the land. So
Mm.
it's special, I think, to feel that and to take that with us back home as well.
Completely. And it's such a fundamentally different concept that, I mean, many of the earth-based religions, if you want to call it a religion, or traditions, have in common. But within the most Western civilizations, it got completely lost. So it's really, really beautiful that there is also these places where we can still tap, even as, a visitor, tap into these principles and learn from it and being taught by the land, and then, as you said, bring it back.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. And it feels from my experience also that openness lives in the people as well, from what I've experienced. And it's like, I remember that last year when we walked to the jetty, it's like, to this day I don't know who that land belongs to, on paper, but it didn't matter. But you
Mm.
walked kind of across a boathouse jetty as well. So you basically walk across someone's boathouse, and they had a little yard there and like all the things. And I always like, just from how I know it from home, it's like it feels like, oh, I'm walking across someone else's property. It's like, oh, I
Yeah,
can feel my
property.
heart tightening, go like, oh, I better be quick, you know. And then a couple of the ladies who were there with me, they felt the same way. They were like, oh, I don't really want to go across this guy's boathouse or whatever. And then the couple who owned the boathouse, they were there, and we thought like, oh, what are we gonna do now? Are we gonna turn back? Are we gonna ask what's, it felt like I was always like by default expecting some kind of trouble.
Mm. Hmm.
But then what actually happened was that they were like, hey, do you want to see the boathouse? You can have a look
Wow.
inside if you want. It's like, and we were like, oh,
Well,
okay. Didn't need to worry at all. And it's like, and that was the energy that I really got there as well. It's like, it's just a different attitude, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's beautiful. And it really, yeah, it often made me dream of one day living there. So who knows?
Mm. Yeah, coming back to the dreaming. So,
Exactly.
and what a beautiful way to actually dream with the land that you are desiring to live on. So, I'm sure that the dream will come true.
Beautiful.
I feel like yeah, I'm very at peace now. I really feel that there is a medicine that was transmitted through your words and us speaking about the land. Personally, I've never been to Sweden, but I also feel a strong calling, mainly because of the silence. So let's see. Thank you so much for coming, Klara.
Thank you so
I
much for
really,
having me.
really enjoyed it, and I hope that many of our listeners and people who are watching this have we have sparked some interest now in the medicine that these places and landscape, although there is of course a lot more, but yeah, that it holds.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to be on here, and it feels like it has really reconnected me as well to these memories. And so it's like I feel like charged up again
Yeah, yeah, because it's
from
living
that.
codes, right? So now it's like spark them on.
Absolutely. So beautiful.
Mm, Thank
Thank
you.
you.